friends, and welcome back to Random Hearts, and welcome to one of the rooms in our home that we would like to share with you. This is the largest of our secondary bedrooms, and it also has the largest closet. Now, this room was a little tricky for us. Unlike when our son moved out, our daughter had this space, and when she moved out, we weren't exactly sure what we wanted to do with this space. Now, our son's bedroom became our guest room. We had an immediate need for a guest space, and if you'd like to watch that video, we toured that earlier this year. I'll link that up in the cards. But when our daughter moved out, she didn't take her furniture with her, and initially this room sat empty with her furniture for about 2 years, 2.5 years actually. And it wasn't until our granddaughter was born and a niece that we decided we needed a space that would accommodate children and their playing and their sleeping. So today we're going to take a tour of what we consider the playroom. This is a space that my granddaughter, when she comes to the house, I don't even get hugs from her because she immediately runs upstairs and comes to this room. So she knows this is a space that she is welcome in and she can do whatever she wants in. And she does get to occasionally sleep in this room, and we have had friends come stay the night that have had children, and they have stayed in this room as well. But let's get started with what we considered when we were looking at this space as an extra room in our home. So we as empty nesters considered quite a few things before turning this room eventually into a playroom. But one of the first things we thought about is what we personally needed in our lives. We wanted to utilize the square footage of our home the best to our abilities and with what we needed the most. And when we first started thinking about this, a home gym was one of our considerations. That was quickly taken off the table because this is an upper floor and there is a family room below us and there is no structural support underneath this room. Basically, we didn't feel like the addition of a weight system up here and a couple of pieces of exercise equipment would be a good fit for this space. Even though it was something we were wanting and needing, it just didn't work for the location in our home. Now, I do have a craft room and an office next door, and for a short time, we did consider rotating these two spaces, putting our playroom in the smaller bedroom and bringing the office into here. But that was also a logistic nightmare because we have all of our internet access, all of our wires, cables, everything is coming into the house in that room. And so that was just not something that my husband or I were willing to mess with. So that's when the idea for turning this into a playroom / children's area came about. Now, we also needed a space for my husband. I was quickly pushing him out of our closet in our master bedroom. So the closet in this room, as you will see, became his space for his clothing. And we also have room for his clothing as well. So we considered quite a few of those things before we ever even started this room. When we began putting this room together, we went back to the basics. What did we need the most without costing us the most? Because this room was our daughter's, she did eventually come take all of her furniture and we were left with nothing in here. But we knew we needed a twin-sized bed. If we had gone with anything larger than that, it would have taken up too much floor space, and we wanted area for play. That was the biggest reason for this room, was to have a place for our grandkids and our nieces and nephews and any friends that came to the house, their kids to play. But so we went with a twin-sized bed. This is a twin from, I'm actually not sure where we got this from. It's a Jenny Lind bed, and this does have a trundle bed option. We had considered possibly putting in a bunk bed unit, but I find bunk beds very visually overpowering in a room, and they take up a lot of vertical space for something that you don't need on a super regular basis. In fact, the trundle option that we got for this Jenny Lind bed has not been used yet. The bed itself has been used several times, but not the trundle. So it's not something we needed on an often basis, but we still wanted the option. So it does require us to move a few things out of the room or to slide them around a little, but that's pretty easy for us to do. Everything's on felt pads or has casters. So we can move things around pretty easily, pull that trundle out, and have another sleeping space for another child. We can also put 2 adults on this bed if they are willing. Now, that was not the only consideration we needed in this room for the basics. We needed a dresser area because this was going to be my husband's dressing area. We needed to have space for him to keep his socks, underwear, and some of his pajamas, things like that. So we found this unit from IKEA. I don't remember what it was called, but it's kind of got a dresser / bookshelf kind of feel to it. This is attached to the wall, so it cannot come down if somebody were to climb on it or open a drawer and tip it. So it has anti-tip stuff on it. And then above those drawers that my husband's clothing are in are baskets and bins that have toys in them. They are strategically placed on the shelf so that we have toys that are for younger children on the bottom shelf where they can reach them, and toys for older children on the top shelves where they can reach them. Now, some of these toys are borderline antique because some of them were our children's toys from 20 plus years ago. Some of them have some sentimental value to them. We're a little bit cautious with them. If you go up to the next shelf on this unit, you'll see our Woody doll, and he is very sentimental to me. Even though my son gets a little creeped out by him, he is sentimental, and he does have his voice box still works in him.
Howdy, partner. My name's Sheriff Woody.
But we have a collection of books on this next shelf that, if you don't know, I am a paraeducator in our school district, and I work in an elementary. And for years, I've been collecting children's books. I love to read, and I love to read to children. And I find that children's books have a quality to them that sometimes adult books don't have. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned in children's books and a lot of life lessons in them. So I enjoy reading children's books, and I love to read to my granddaughter. So those are a collection of books that I don't necessarily want a child to have full access to, but I will help them with them. So that's why they are on the upper shelf. And those are the 2 basic things we needed in this room. Everything else is kind of fluff. Now that we had acquired our basics for the room and everything was in a neutral color palette, everything's in the grayscale, we wanted to add a little bit of color to the room. I knew I wanted to stay fairly gender neutral, so I did not want to go with primary colors and I did not want to go with pastels. And we walked into an IKEA and I found this bedding and instantly knew this was the color inspiration for this entire room. This has an animal print on it that was very gender neutral, and the colors in it were just perfect for what I was looking for. I also based this a little bit on some school decor that we had in our classroom, and I loved the color palette on that. So this was where we started with this bedding. And a lot of times when I am putting a room together, I do start with something like the bedding or a pillow, and I will move from that point to get the decorations and decor in the room. Paint also played a big role in how the decor came together in this room. When our daughter had this space, she had several different colors on the walls. As she was growing, we changed the color of the room. If I have any pictures from her previous bedroom setups, I will share those right now. But when she moved out of the room, it was a dark orchid color on the wall, and it was very, very girly. And I didn't want to have too much color on the wall. In fact, I felt like originally white was the best choice. That way I could change this room if we needed to and I wouldn't have to paint again. But after bringing in the bed and this bedding here and having all white walls, it became very apparent that this room needed some extra color from somewhere. So I did decide to add an accent wall. We put it on the window wall, which does have a window that produces a lot of natural light coming through it because it is south facing, and it does not make the space feel closed in. A lot of times when you pull a dark color onto a wall, it will bring the room in, it will make it feel smaller, but this does not. And I feel like it does a great job of adding some color to the wall, adding some natural decor to the space without making it feel so clinical. Now we get to the fun part where we get to show our creative side and do a few of those little personal touches that make this space cozy and a little more inviting. So this room right here required a couple of DIY projects, and this is one of them. We had some old Duplos that we had held on to, and some dollhouse furniture, and even some dress-up clothing from when our children were younger. And I had found these bins at Target, and I knew that they were the right size for those toys. So my husband built this bookshelf with those dimensions specifically in mind for those bins, and we knew we needed a countertop area so that you could place store or, just counter is good for kids to put things on. So I painted this. I painted it a bright red color. There is another object in the room that I also painted this color, but we'll get to that in a minute. And I did ding this up and scuff it up so that when kids are playing with it, it doesn't show any of the marks that are going to happen when they're playing. My husband also built these book rails right here. We did find some at IKEA that were kind of the inspiration for this, but I wanted to be able to paint them. So I did pull paint colors from the bedding again, and we went into rainbow order here. That was totally intentional. But this is a set of books that we can pull down on a regular basis to read with kids. Some of these are accessible, so the lower ones are accessible to young ones, but some of these upper ones are not. And that has worked out really well. The other thing we worked on in this room is the DIY kitchen here. This is an IKEA kitchen that when we originally got it and put it together, we did not like the height of it. So we took the little extenders off of the feet. So this is a really short kitchen, but it works quite well for our granddaughter right now. The other thing that we had problems with this little kitchen was that it did not have a back on it. This was not here. And we wanted to make sure that things would not fall behind the little kitchen. There is quite a bit of space because we have baseboards in our house for that to not sit up against the wall quite right. We also wanted to protect the wall itself from bangs and dings with the kitchen accessories. So my husband put on this MDF board. We painted it white, and then we put peel and stick vinyl tiles on it in a subway design, so that it would look a little more realistic, but it also cushions everything and keeps it from getting nicked up and marred. The other thing we did in this room that was a DIY was this garland that goes across the window. We had no curtains in here. We have a pull-down cellular blind, and I didn't want to put any other curtains in the room. And I did feel like it needed something on the window, but I wasn't quite sure what. And I was in a craft store and I found these in the form of 2 trivets, believe it or not. And I thought to myself, I can pull those apart and I can thread them back up and make a garland out of them. And I did. I pulled them all apart. I put them in rainbow order and then painstakingly rethreaded them and beaded them so that they would fit on the window. And that is our window treatment in the room. Those are our DIY projects. Now let's get into some of the things that we repurposed for the room. As we got further into this project, we knew our color scheme. We knew the theme of the room we were going for. We were aiming kind of towards a schoolroom setting. And this came up at a antique shop in Laramie, and I picked it up. I'm assuming it's from the University of Wyoming, but my intentions were originally to strip all the paint, gum, glue, you name it. There was gross stuff on there. Strip it all off and stain this a natural wood tone. I knew this was oak, but as I got into it, this is not oak. This is something else, and it is a very cheap wood. It's almost pine-like. It's very soft, and it did not take on stain the same way. So I decided very early on that I did not want to stain this. I was going to paint it. So I painted it the same color as the bookshelf that my husband built. I did rough up the edges. I added a little bit of dark wax to kind of patina it. and it works great. I like to sit in this chair when I am watching my granddaughter. I can facilitate her playing, I can monitor everything, and I can do something else as a task on the desktop. So this is a great example of how to use paint to repurpose an object that may not have wanted to be in this room or wouldn't have worked in this room. Now, this is another example. This is my daughter's dollhouse. She got this when she was about 4 years old. This is the Fisher-Price Happy Family dollhouse. Originally, it was white with a purple roof, bright hot pink, almost Barbie-like doors, and then light-colored pink shutters and windows. Now, over time, she took really good care of it, but we had to store it. And over time, it yellowed. It got a little bit on the brittle side, and we did have to make a couple of repairs. But things were getting really faded on it, and I brought it into the space hoping to be able to use it, and it just didn't fit in here. It was so jarringly wrong for the space, and I thought, I want to use this, but how can I? So the answer was paint, and I took every piece of that dollhouse apart. I spray painted the pieces. I even had to hand paint the shutters because I could not tape them off. It was pulling the paint to actually put tape on there. So the only color on this dollhouse other than the brown roof is the red doors. And I was even able to save the original Fisher-Price logo on there. So I am really happy at how this turned out. I don't know if I would ever do it again. It was a lot of work. And it does look great in here, and our granddaughter plays with it constantly. It's one of her favorite toys. So the other object that I have in the room that is a mix of found objects with paint are these. I got this idea from the classroom teacher I work with. She had Play-Doh cups that had construction paper with the coordinating color of the crayon that goes around them. And I thought, I have all these old wee yogurt jars. I believe they're from Yoplait. And I didn't know what to do with them. And it just came to me one day. So I turned all of these upside down, spray painted every single one of them in a coordinating color of the room. And then we added crayons to it. Now I know they're glass, and you might be worried about that. But this doesn't normally sit here on this little table. It usually sits on the bookshelf. And it is only brought down with supervision, and we've never had any issue. Now, there is no purple in this room, so in order to bring the purple in, I needed to stay in the muted color palette. So that's why this is a little more dusty. But my husband built the box for it, and it works great. And that is some of the DIY projects, some of the repurposed projects that we did in the room. And now let's talk about the artwork in the room. You can see that the room's lighting has changed quite a lot, and I am supplementing with a couple of overhead lights. So hopefully that is helpful, but it has progressed in the day. And I wanted to talk to you real quickly about this artwork that we put in the room. When we first put the room together, we weren't really considering art in here. And as the theme kind of progressed and we knew we wanted to work with the school theme, that is when I started picking up items that might be on the walls of the classroom. I actually had wall cards with the alphabet for a short amount of time, but decided it was too busy for this space. So I didn't put them in here. And then I picked up a print with the world map on it and had that framed, and that is on a wall above the desk. And eventually I found this little globe right here. This was being tossed, actually. It was being tossed out into a dumpster because it is an old globe of the world. It is not accurate, and it really doesn't work very well anymore. It doesn't spin. And so it was being tossed, and I scavenged it. I love the colors in it. It matches this room well, and it kind of brings that whole theme together. Now, the last thing I want to show you is this piece of artwork. This was a saying I found. I'm not even sure where I found it from, but I loved it and I wanted to incorporate it in this room somewhere. I did tweak it a little. I don't think the sleep was in that space anywhere. There was something else there, and I did take that word out and added sleep. The original process for this was to put this on canvas with vinyl lettering from my Cricut. Now I tried to do that and it failed miserably. The vinyl would not stick to the canvas at all. So I ended up using the vinyl cutouts that I made with my Cricut as a template, and I traced everything and then hand painted it. And it was not a fun project, and I probably would never do it again. But I am happy with the results, and if you can see, this yellow right here is the same yellow in this book rail, and same with the orange and the red, and the green is elsewhere in the room. This is the same blue that we have used on a couple of different things around the room as well. But this came together so beautifully, and you'll notice that I have ascending order on this and descending order on that. It is purposeful. That way it doesn't get too matchy-matchy, and there's a little bit of difference in the way the colors move together. But I hope that this has been a helpful video for you. I hope if you've liked it, you will give it a thumbs up. If it's given you some ideas or you like the way we put things together, please let us know in the comments. We love to hear from you. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please consider subscribing. We would love to have you part of our community. We hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.